Welcome to the Survival and Expansion meetup with the Black Swan of 2020. I'll be speaking English. However, if you like, you can ask questions in Polish. We'll get to the questions in the next slide.
So we'd like to ask you to use Inventor app to ask questions because we want to keep all the questions for the future reason. So anytime you want to ask questions, please do not interrupt Wojtek and just leave it for the end of the presentation.
Okay.
Just like housekeeping rules.
At the end, we'll have time to discuss, and I'll seek actually some advice from some of you guys because you've been through this as we were. All right, next slide, please.
So one more thing, if you don't know how to do it, just go to the mobile app, go to the event website, and go to the schedule. Where's find ask question button, and just all questions are automated. Okay.
And one question, please mute your mic so we can actually hear. Thank you, Andrzej. Thank you. All right, welcome. Welcome everybody. I hear that Tomek Zmysłowski is trying to join as well. For some reason he was unable to. Hope he's with us. We'll be distributing this material to everybody present anyway. And so I need to start with credits. Many of the graphs in this presentation are the works of others, copied from the web. Many of them are coming from the Deal Room, the analytic company from Amsterdam. And a lot of insights are gathered by the Te Puna Mahata Matatini, the Center for Complex Systems of Networks from New Zealand. There are others. I just pulled them from the web, not knowing the authors. So I'm in the position to offer a BBBL, Inspiration Booster beer license. So if you recognize your work in that material or somebody you know, I owe you a beer if you recognize it. And for those who don't know me, I guess everybody knows me here. I'm partner, I don't know about this title, Head of Investments at VC, but yeah, I'm the partner in Inspiration Booster. Next slide, please. So please, please, please pay attention to those graphs. You might have heard many attempts at predicting the effects on the disease, on the business, and on the number of people actually getting sick, and also recoveries and how long it would last. I'll ask you to, I can share the link afterwards. This is a really good presentation and a really good analytical work. And actually it touches on something which is extremely important for us. This is a known unknown in the classification of unknowns. We are depending on the measures introduced by governments in your target markets and at the same time in your home locations. And the actions they take dramatically impact future possible scenarios. This is, as I said, this is work from people from New Zealand. The data is pretty current. They had enough time to make sense of the numbers. This is coming from 25th of March. So you can see the different scenarios depending how effective the suppression techniques used by governments are. And they control essentially how steep the exponent is in this distribution. And you can see that the control ranges from 2.5 to 0.75%. And the 0.75 is the only one below 1. For those not inclined mathematically, this is extremely important. Only if you have that number below 1, there is a way of containing the disease. Anything above 1, it just explodes. It just explodes at different speeds. So if there is closed schools and universities, yes, we have that in Poland. If there is a case isolation, it is not perfect just because there are not enough tests. Nevertheless, it's happening as well. If you have case isolation and household quarantine, which we do have, then you got like 1.75. if you get social distancing on top of this, you can get to 1.2. You need all those measures to go below 1. And that's the only scenario when you can actually suppress the growth of the number of people who got infected. However, suppression just buys you time. Suppression can bring the number of casualties down, provided there's enough capacity in hospitals. And if you do suppress, then there's a high potential for the double dip. Namely, there'll be another growth the moment the limitations are lifted. And this is just tragic. The other thing I wanted to pay attention to, and this is on the back of the data we gathered from you in the survey, is the timeline. Have a look. All those scenarios assume 400 days of the suppression measures. 400 days. It's over a year. We are talking summer next year. And with that, it's up to you. We'll help you, but it's up to you to get one of those scenarios, maybe establish a checking points where you will know more whether the measures work and what's the plan for the future. But some of the measures you need to implement already now, as we can see that from the data, that you are underestimating potential risks, especially the duration of the time where you wouldn't be able to run your business normally. All right. Of course, there's a caveat. The starting point of that disease might be different from for New Zealand and Poland. It just shifts everything by a couple of weeks, so it doesn't matter that much. All right, can you get a next slide? Remember, some of the scenarios suppressing the growth of the number of people who got the virus can lead to the double, and then lifting those can lead to the double dip in the growth of the business. So yes, even among us, there are limited few who are lucky enough to benefit from those circumstances. You know who you are, so I'll not dwell too much on this. However, everybody else is following the curve of the general economy. And even those optimists around you who said that given when you took the last round, you should be good for another year, it might not be enough. You see this? This is real data. The blue balloons are Bitspiration Booster portfolio startups, and they cluster into 3 different bulbs. This is say 3 months, 6 months, and sorry, something happened here. Yeah, okay. This is 3 months, 6 months, and a year of runway. And once you are done with your current funding and with the R&D part of the projects, you'll need to get additional money to survive. And that's where, this is the result of the survey we took. Nobody was foreseeing lasting longer than a year. So pay attention to your runway, pay attention to income. We hope that there will be measures which will help us overcome this, but they are not in place yet. So conserve cash. It will be extremely important. And I don't even want to think what will happen if there is indeed the long suppression, but not strong enough to kill the virus. So eventually we'll be having the second dip, which will essentially kill us all. Can we get the next slide, please? In a sense that our business is not us physically, it's not that bad. So that shows something which looked like haphazard previously. We declined investments in several hot and overhyped, in our opinion, markets. And here is the result. You are the blue circles here, and the size of the circle is proportional to the investment we made in you. Yeah, I see that we have invested in technology which is heavy industry more or less, and it's currently down. Don't worry, it is not the how it's going to look going forward. It is how it looks now. So that's the state of the market. And if you have enough runway, it's not that big a deal that the stock values those industries like 30% lower. So everybody else, except for those big guys doing heavy chemistry and unique stuff, is in the pretty nice part of the market. So it's not falling as bad as everybody else. And there are some position to actually grow and use this as an opportunity. I don't think it will come without an effort. Pivoting, changing the product vision, but nevertheless, you stand a chance because the markets are valuing the industries you are in. All right, can you get the next slide? So here is a slightly different view on the same data. This is the impact on your potential revenue at the max depth, assuming there will be a single dip. So we are talking something like 6 months to that moment. And that's how the impact will look like. And here the size, again, means, sorry, this time is not the size of the investment, it's just the number of companies. You cluster somehow around those areas on this graph, which is again good. And again, durable manufacturing is the same, big guys doing heavy stuff, but they have pretty long runways, so there is a chance for them to survive. Pay attention to this, and again, as I said, it's the potential from the upper left corner will not come by itself. You need to think about the needs of the customers during this time. It's going to last longer than everybody thought. So what can you offer? How would you pivot to be able to serve the needs of today? I see some of you already doing this, but others should have that thought too. All right, next slide, please. I'm pretty sure you have that idea yourself. And again, I don't want to point to the results from the survey. I know that we failed some of you with the late payments because of our issue with NCBR. We are trying to fix this. You can treat those as a buffer if you didn't get everything you needed. Make sure you prepare the project documentation properly, close the phases of the project, apply for another investment tranche, and another matching grant if you are in that position. So that should give you some comfort. Other than that, those are the things which we hear from others. Oh, by the way, on this one, we attended the similar meetings by some of friendly VC funds. And they rarely go beyond the layoffs and the salary reductions. I think you can be more creative. If you go to the survival mode for too long, you'll be having difficulties on the rebound of this whole thing. Of course, it will pass, but it's a matter of surviving till it just passes. Some of the stuff which you'll be able to do is try to negotiate the rent, and we are trying that at Bait. There is a force majeure event, obviously. There is a provision for this in Polish law. Landlord's view on this is completely different than ours, obviously. So it comes with the strings attached, but think about lowering that cost in the negotiations or moving out if your contracts allow for this. The government is just voting on the deal trying to reduce social security contributions. see whether they are applicable to you. For those who don't employ more than 9 people, there will be some benefits, but they are very, very tiny. So that's not going to actually mean much. Salary cuts. Yeah, the ugly thing. I know that some of you had already done this, trying to overcome the previous crisis with NCBR. That's too bad. We did this too. Again, I'm just switching roles. We meaning beta in that. But at the moment, we started from ourselves only, because we think that we have a chance of going to the second bullet here, namely get the grants. There is a new round of Szybka Ścieżka, fast track, starting April the 6th, and make sure you apply. It'll be much more competitive, I guess, because of what happened. But that's the first of the new round of those, so you should be all right. Make sure that you have something to apply for. This is R&D grants. From what I hear, there might be some relaxation on the contribution from NCBR and the minimis limits of 200,000 euros. I'm not sure about this. It will come and become clear in the coming days. There's even uglier thingy, and surprisingly, the friendly VCs we spoke to, some of them our investors, insisted that that's where you should start. And the argument they are using here is that whatever measures you are employing, you have to do it fast because it might matter at the other end, right? You don't want to wait with those. So there's that two separate things. If you have underperformers in your teams, you should have been dealing with them already. So try not to mix this. Also because of the legal issue, if you mix, you might get in trouble. But if worst comes to worst, layoffs on the friendly terms, in the sense that there's nothing friendly about kicking somebody out of job, but try to do this in a way that you not burn bridges and you can get those people back when you emerge on the other side, getting out of the survival mode and the skeletal company for that time of the crisis. The last resort, reductions in force, just permanent, leaving the employees, making them redundant. It is ugly. And again, recommended by our investors, for example. How you can deal with the increase of the cash flow. Think about grants and the measures which your home governments are providing. Poland is pretty low on this, but if you have presence anywhere else, think whether you can apply for those grants. I know it's just few of us here, but that might be worth checking. There might be a help, government help in the form of the loans. And again, you are a startup, so usually your investment is bigger than your revenue. It will be really difficult to get unless there is some sort of the sponsored loan or the guarantees by government banks. Bridge rounds. You're out of luck trying to find a new investor, and the situation is actually ripe for the predatory VCs who will be trying to push your valuation down to the absurdly low values. It did happen before, and actually it looked like the scheme where back in 2008, Sequoia issued the memo to its founders, and actually gathered them in Sequoia offices. This was the memo. Rest in peace, good times, which wasn't that bad back in 2008. It wasn't that bad, except that the valuations, the number of deals didn't change. The VCs are sitting on money and they didn't expect this. but I'll get to the next point. But it lets them actually reduce the valuation of your company. So you'll be having more deals with lower valuations. Beware, if you don't have any other opportunity, and if somebody like this comes your way, just fight, and then maybe you'll need to accept the round. However, what they are doing and what we will be trying to do if we get, this is not that like they are really all of them bad guys. It's also like their LPs are now having a way better ways of deploying their investments. Imagine what happened to the public market, right? The drop of 60% in the US. So the obvious play is when they see the rebound to invest money in the public stock market, because that will be fast, relatively safe gain, and which sets the VC market in a difficult situation because it has, given the risk, it has to provide much bigger returns. So that will be difficult for the VCs to actually get their LPs to execute on the commitments, even if they have the funds which are hundreds of millions. This is not the money, right? This is just the commitment. So that's what's happening as well. But you stand a chance of the bridge rounds from your current investors, including us, if we get to terms with our LPs, because they have vested interest in actually your survival. If you die, the whole business of last couple of years is just done. The other thing which is, I think, possible for some of you is see what's needed. I mentioned that before. See what's needed, how you can pivot. I know, Tomek, that you did this already, and I would really love you to share with others whether this was a result of the of the past funnel which you worked through, or you could actually get some surplus because of what's happening. So I don't know if it is a good time now, or just let me go through this and then we'll come back to that discussion and questions. All right. Okay, next slide, please. This is not a feel-good slide. This is a slide to show you that the startups who are using the VC money are in better position than the average small and medium enterprise. Why is it so? Just because if you are running business on your revenue and not on the investment, this is a tough world. So they have something like 27 days of cash buffer. And you, on the average, have much more because you are somewhere on your runway, and some of you just completed follow-on rounds with new investors or got some money from us and CBR or other sources we control. So this is not feel good. This is trying to remind you that all the measures which will be governments trying to implement to keep businesses operating will put you in better situation than those guys, because they start dying off in something like 27 days on average. And this is US data, it's not Poland. So that's what I mean by you are in the better shape than they are. Can we get the next slide? Let's call what's happening and this short-term effect as the cyclical, as it will be going down and up again. And also think about what will be the long-term impact, which is relevant for the rebound phase of your businesses. And again, we put the blue balloons of Inspiration Booster portfolio companies on the trends as they are seen by somebody else. This time it is Deal Room from Amsterdam. So again, looks like you are positioned pretty well. Telecom, security, that's something which is pretty good. the biotech. I hope Konrad is somewhere around. I put a dot for the collaboration software, thinking about the enablers rather than the actual collaboration software, because we don't have that in our portfolio. So that's where we think you are. And again, it seems that you would be well positioned when it is all over in a year or more to actually grow again. But you have to get to that other shore of this ocean, and it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be nice. We'll be obviously helping as much as we can. Next slide. All right, so that's the end. I think we'll be posting this publicly. So again, the apologies for using somebody else's work. And I think we can switch to the questions mode.